to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty podcast with Borg, Betz, and a baller.
Welcome in. It's the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty podcast. We're back. I'm your way too cool host, Kyle Morganoni, and I'm joined by Matthew Betz and Jason Moore.
Only way too cool on YouTube. Because if you can't see the man right now, which I know the majority of our listeners are on the podcast front, thank goodness. You're welcome. Like, just stick around. Go audio only, because you don't have to look at Kyle, who lost it's not really a bet, it's more of like a challenge. You have these weekly challenges in your league, and so you're wearing like a shell necklace, and you look, if I may say, you just look like a douche. You just look, I'm just going to come right out and say, that's how you look. And so hopefully your hosting skills can rise above your physical appearance right now.
I have no words. I have no words for this. Just go to YouTube, people.
Well, if they're going to YouTube, you might as well show the second half of the challenge that has been lost. Your phone case, as decided on by your league. This phone case is special. I didn't know a phone case existed like that, but that is awesome that you have to walk around with that for the week. And I've never heard of the fantasy football like challenge things. That's a new concept, and for me, having done this for a decade, I'm surprised I haven't heard of that. But why don't you explain what you do? Because when you were telling us before the show, I was like, that's somewhat pretty cool. Other than the specific thing you lost for, I think is bonk. To have a punishment follow it, because it in and of itself is a punishment.
Yes. First off, Jason, you were spot on, because the only word I have is douche canoe. I just look like I look stupid. And then I also am seeing that the Kyle Bro Gorgon is also another name. I just look like a bro right now.
Bro Gorgon. Nice.
But yeah, my league, and I'm in a couple of home leagues here. And they added these challenges, and I think this is a fun thing for people if you're trying to keep up conversation in your league. You know, a lot of times people check out in home leagues or they check out in dynasty leagues. How do you add something? So we take part of the pot, part of what we're doing, and we spread it out throughout the season, and we have these bi-weekly challenges that you cannot control. And so I lost a challenge by being the person that lost by the fewest amount of points, okay? And I just want to
is already terrible.
Here's the crazier part about this league, okay? And I'm not here to whine and moan. My league will listen, and they'll just, they'll get me even more. But I lost by 3 points that week. And guys, how would you feel if you lost by 3 points?
Upset, unhappy.
Terrible.
I hope that I'm playing against the median and also got a 1 and went 1-1, but otherwise I'm very unhappy.
I would rather just get crushed than lose by 3 points.
Okay, what if I told you in this league that I've lost 2 other times by fewer points than that this season?
I would tell you, play some better defense, brother. Like, go out. This is a you problem at that point.
Sounds like a coaching problem. No motivation in the locker room at all.
Yeah, I can't get the boys in a frenzy, but I lost last night by 1.02 and then another week by 0.5. So it happens. I'm sure in your league you have the same stories, but yep, this is me, Puka shells and all for a while. And yeah, put it this way, Jason, you brought it up. Like, anything that makes the league more fun and more conversational is great. Like, I have to send a picture to my league every single day, and if I'm spotted in the wild without the Puka shells or the phone case, then I have to do an extra week of it.
Yeah, I love it. I think that's great, and it's a good story wherever you go, and you will be judged. You know what I mean? Like, you're walking around the grocery store, I'm going to look at you and be like, that guy's a tool. That guy's a tool.
What's incredible about this is Kyle's going to go to his kid's baseball game this week. And Kyle's been to all the baseball games. So all the other parents know Kyle's, quote unquote, normal, clothing line, what he wears, what his phone case looks like. He's just going to pull out the pink phone case with his necklace on. And all the other dads are going to be like, are you okay? Are you okay? I can't stop laughing because, no offense, Kyle, it just looks so natural on you. Like, if I never met you before and I just saw you wearing that, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense.
The 90s were a vibe, so I guess I'll just quit this job and join a boy band after this. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, Jason knows this about me. I kind of thrive on just not caring what other people think, and so I kind of like digging in even more. So I think I'm starting to embrace who I am. This is who I am. This is all I am anymore. On this episode, we are going to do our weekly rewind, talk about some players, and then go heavy into wide receivers, look at what they've done through 7 weeks, and then kind of check in on some guys that we've had conversation. I mean, man, how many episodes of the Dynasty podcast have we talked about Drake London, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson? And I feel like every single time I've had a different order over the last couple of months. Right now, it's like clearly there's one of them that's balling out and who you want. But we're going to check in with them. We're going to check in on Jameson Williams, check in on some second-year wide receivers, and then these rookies. And I think it's important because if you can look at these players, draft them, hope for the best, and if you're not being actionable, if you're not looking at some of these behind-the-scenes route numbers, then they're going to pass you by and you look up a year later and you haven't done anything. So we're going to check in on some of those. It should be good. If you want to go to fantasyfootballers.com, join the Foot, members get to be a part of the ultimate dashboard. Jason, you've been working on that behind the scenes. Our dev team doesn't sleep anymore because this is all they're doing.
They really don't. Specifically, like our main front end guy, we often try to get pickleball games going. He's like, I can't until the ultimate dashboard is live on mobile, which should be pretty soon. I think in about a week we should be submitting the build. You guys are going to love it. It's not just the ultimate dashboard, which is awesome and new this year and incredible, but it's all the Foot Clan tools will be in the in-season app. So you can download the Fantasy Footballers app right now, prepare for that, or just wait for us to announce that the app's been completely redone. You can go to jointhefoot.com now, get access to everything on mobile, on web, but not necessarily through an app. That'll be in about a week. But all of those, the Stream Finder, the Strength of Schedule, that will automatically come with Dynasty rankings. And if you're the ultimate tier, all of that stuff is included, including the ultimate dashboard for your waiver pickups, your spot starts, your team-specific news. There's a lot of cool stuff there.
And I believe, if I'm correct, that the main way that this was designed by you, Jason, was you trying to maximize people's toilet time. Like, it was mostly you thinking about people sitting on the toilet and just being a part of everything. Like that's really the only thing that we care about here at our company.
Yeah. I mean, I pretty much exclusively only try to improve toilet time, like in my life and in others. This is my goal.
Calling?
Talking with my therapist, I'm like, what are your goals this year? It's like to improve my toilet time and the toilet time of others. and so I'm a man on a mission. So you're welcome, America.
That's basically what our company's about. So let's move on.
Weekly Rewind.
Every week, we rewind the film and do a deep dive on a player. We try to make sure that we give you actionable things that you can use in your leagues. And so, Betz, I'll let you start us off with a couple of running backs. One of them that played London, one that didn't.
Yeah, let's talk about the Jaguars running backs because, last year, right around this time, it did not look very, very good for Tank Bigsby. What has changed in a year. But specifically, I wanted to kind of just take a step back because right now, looking at Tank Bigsby and his opportunities, he's been great. And not to take anything away from him, but I wanted to compare how has he looked and what do the stats say on him versus Travis Etienne. And when you look at it, it's not surprising that he's ahead of almost every efficiency metric, whether it's yards after contact per attempt, yards per carry, broken tackle rate, all those things. Tank Bigsby has been better. And when you put on the film and you watch these guys play, Tank just seems to be a better fit to me in the system right now where Travis Etienne, he's still super explosive. He can hit long plays when the play is right. But what this offense needs is a guy to keep them on schedule. And when Trevor Lawrence gets behind schedule, it's usually very, very bad. So Tank Bigsby has been very, very good for this offense. And I think he's fit very well with how the offense flows right now. But I also just kind of take a step back too with Travis Etienne and realize, this past week he didn't play. The week prior he left early because of a hamstring injury. He was nursing a shoulder injury for the last 3 weeks before that. So I just wonder how much of that is injury related and how much of that is fit right now with the offense. But regardless, I'm encouraged by Tank Bigsby. I think his role is, in some capacity, is here to stay. Now, Doug Peterson came out and, said, I'm not a fan of a guy losing his job because of injury. I'm not sure how much of that is coach speak or not, but I do think this will be a split moving forward, regardless of Etienne's health. But Bigsby has looked the part to me this year. So if you've had him for the last year, like you literally thought he had no value, of course, at this point in time last year. And now he looks like a rock solid part of this Jaguars offense. So Tank Bigsby has impressed me quite a bit this year.
What's crazy is they exercised the 5th-year option, I believe, right? On ETN, it was a little over $6 million. And so you kind of looked at this team and said, okay, well, they gave a bunch of money to Lawrence. They threw a bunch of money at Gabe Davis because they wanted to. Drafted Brian Thomas. They have ETN for another year. And you kind of looked at the core of the team and projected that way. Now you kind of look at ETN as kind of this, where does he belong in the Dynasty conversation? Like, Jason, I know you've had him on a Dynasty roster for a long time where you just thought this is a top 10 Dynasty running back, and now it's kind of in between. You can't really trade him away. You're not going to get the same thing, and so he's kind of a hold, but I don't know. How do you feel?
Yeah, from a Dynasty perspective, it's really, really interesting because he's on the 5th-year option. I don't know if he'll re-sign for Jacksonville, hit the free agent market, if he'll be one of those guys that people are going hard after, a Saquon's on the market, or if not, I would assume not. I mean, Travis Etienne has been serviceable. He's been okay, but he's also older than you think. And so it's funny to imagine, like, okay, he feels so young because he had the missed time early in his career where there was no wear or tear on the tires because he was not playing football, and you kind of delete out that from thinking he's another year older, but he is going to be completely dependent upon the contract and the team that signs him in the offseason. This year, when he comes back, I'm not too worried about Tank Bigsby. I believe Tank Bigsby will be involved. He is good. I mean, I felt like an idiot last year when one of my bold predictions at our live show in Los Angeles was that Tank Bigsby was going to come in and be a top 20 running back next to Travis Etienne, and then Tank Bigsby has an all-time horrific rookie season. It's like, okay, well, I guess I was wrong. He's not a good player, but no, he is a good player. He was a good player in college. You're seeing it now. His tackle breaking is great. His speed, his power. It's a really nice compliment to Etienne. But when I made that bold prediction, it wasn't, in my opinion, something that's going to take Travis Etienne and make him the 2 on the team, or Tank Bigsby is going to be a top 20 running back, and so Travis Etienne's a top 30 running back. I see Travis Etienne getting the vast majority of opportunities, the goal line work, passing work more specifically. We've seen Dearness Johnson getting a lot of the passing work while Travis Etienne has been gone. That's going to be Etienne's role. Those are valuable roles for fantasy. So I think it'll be kind of a 1-2 punch, not a 1A, 1B. And I do think Travis Etienne will continue this season as the 1, but Dynasty outlook is really, really interesting to the point where I am scared. Like if Travis Etienne comes out on fire when he comes back from injury and has, a month-long stretch like he had last year where he's got touchdowns every week and the trade deadline's not over, I might look to flip him just from I don't know where he plays football next year standpoint.
So you remember last year when we talked about Bigsby and we talked about how bad he was as a pass catcher? That is the one area that we can say so far. They still don't really trust him. Like, he has 1 catch on the year. Because I was trying to go through with Etienne, like, what is he great at? I think he's fine in a couple of areas, but like between the tackles runner, I don't think he's great. I think other than his pass catching ability, and this team's probably going to be behind in a lot. Their defense is so bad. He's still going to have an awesome floor. They're still going to probably split and get the same kind of red zone touches. But like, is Tank ever going to morph into anything more than like, okay, you got the touchdowns and you were happy?
I think he'll probably. Go ahead, Jason.
I don't think he's going to morph into something that is a star without an injury ahead of him, or without Travis Etienne leaving the team. And I misspoke in saying this offseason. This offseason is the 5th-year option, so he'll
Correct.
be back as a Jag. But the following year, that will be he'll be 26 going into 27, so he'll be playing on the next contract at age 27. I don't know if teams are going to really be falling over themselves for it. And then at that point, if Etienne has the 1A, the 1 to the 2 role with Bigsby, and you've got that for 2 years, I don't think Bigsby is necessarily like the heir apparent future. But an injury ahead of him could make him a star.
Yeah, I was going to say, based off kind of what we've seen this year, like, he's performed well enough that he's going to stick around and have a role in whatever offense he's on. Obviously, it's Jacksonville for the next few years, but whatever offense he's on for the next several years, I don't know how much of a ceiling he has as far as like becoming the dude, no matter what. We're already seeing that, like you said, with Jonas Johnson. So yeah, the ceiling is capped as long as Etienne is there and healthy, but he's at least shown with opportunity he can be effective.
All right, I'm going to jump in next. I have Aaron Jones as a player that I wanted to do a little bit of a deeper dive. We know that he was dealing with an injury before this weekend. He had a huge touchdown run where he was kind of cutting back weak side, and it was against the Lions. So you look at the stat line and you go, hey, this is pretty impressive considering the Lions are a defense you just can't run against. He still has the same thing from Green Bay where he just gets chunk plays and these kind of like 10-yard gains where it's like, man, these are the kind of things that I want in fantasy, that like he's going to get stopped a bunch. And he did against the Lions, like a bunch of just short gains where it's nothing. And then all of a sudden he can pop a 10-yard run. Minnesota, the way that they're playing this year is so different. Like you remember the last 2 years with Kevin O'Connell, it's like that team can't run the ball with Alexander Mattison and what was it, like late Dalvin Cook, which he's not dead. It just makes it sound like he is. Right. This team is running the ball with Sam Darnold under center. They have the most snaps in the NFL with a quarterback under center. And Aaron Jones is the third most rushing yards on plays under center. I mean, he's been so good. And what I noticed is that they run to the left. Like I kept making a little note when I was watching the whole game. I was like, man, they keep running to the left. And then I checked out the stats. They run to the left, the second highest rate in the NFL. So that's kind of like their main go-to move. But it's rare for a player at this age in Dynasty to still be attractive to go get. I mean, if you were to go get Aaron Jones, you'd be buying really high right now. But if you're contending, it's like, why would I sell this player if I'm just going to ride him until the wheels fall off? So it's like, I want to be able to look at Aaron Jones when he went to the Vikings and say, oh, he's done. They're stupid. Why are they spending this money? He still looks really, really good.
So this is more of a hold, not a trade for. Like if you're a contending team, right? If you're one of the, we'll say you're the fourth best team in your league. You're good. You're maybe not the favorite, but you're good. Is that worth like sending a future first?
That's what it's going to
cost for a rental. I know that's what it's going to cost, and I think assuming that Aaron Jones is on a non-contending team, I would imagine a dynasty manager who is not contending, if they can get a future first for Aaron Jones, they'd take that deal.
Yes.
I'm just saying, is that worth giving up the now for the future in that specific situation? You're the one that watched the film's deep dive on him. So what do you think, Kyle?
I think he hasn't lost his time. I mean, he's not like 25-year-old Aaron Jones that's just the most electric player, on a per touch basis, but he's still been really good. And apart from injury, like I don't see him being irrelevant. This is going to be a competitive team. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, do you want to go for a championship or do you want to have the 112 and it turns into Xavier Legette?
Well, if you got the 112, you already had the championship.
There you go.
So you're saying that it wouldn't be a 112, but yeah, I mean, it's tough because this is a guy he's on a 1-year contract.
Yes.
This is a small money contract. He's 29. He did not have a huge free agent market out there for him. I mean, maybe he didn't really test it because he just wanted to stay in division and like stick it to the Packers. I don't know the inner workings, but I wouldn't imagine he has a massive market next year unless the work he's doing for the Vikings convinced them to like, hey, let's give him another, let's sign him to a 2-year deal or something. So it's just really difficult for me to say give away a first for a guy who. Yeah. Man,
but that's
I don't know if I could pull the trigger on that as the contender.
Would you do that for James Conner?
So it's very, very similar situation. I think I would. And the reason I would, I mean, I'm not sure I wouldn't on the Aaron Jones side. However, as a native here in Arizona and knowing how poorly our franchise is run, I expect at this point James Conner to get a contract extension this offseason. He's been playing great. He's a leader in the locker room. He's an important part of this team. I'm not like advocating as a general manager to give 30-year-old running backs new contracts. I think the Cardinals could do it though. So based on that and also the strength of schedule for this year, I haven't looked into it deeply for Aaron Jones, but I have seen James Conner has the number one rest of season schedule adjusted rankings for the running back position, and specifically over the playoff weeks, they're just outstanding. There's a player who back-to-back years has been that second half league winner. So there's a couple things I like a little bit better on the Connor side, even though I like the offense better for the Vikings.
All right, Jason, you're going to hit us up next. We talked about Tank Bigsby, Travis Etienne. We talked about Aaron Jones. And then you have Javonte Williams, who had maybe one of his best games of his career.
Well, and that's why I went back. So we watched the game. It was like, oh, hey, Javonte's running well. The narrative we talked about on the main show, it was scary because the first carry went to Travis to Estime Lauder. And Audric Estime comes out there and we're like, oh, no, this is the death of Javonte. And then Javonte gets the vast majority of work the rest of the game. He looks good on it. He is still involved in the passing game quite a bit. And Estime is not a threat in the passing game, even if he cedes work. So I wanted to go back and look and watch the game and watch the carries and watch the line. And then I went back and I looked at the week prior. And then I went back and I looked at the week prior. And then I went back and I looked at the week prior. Just to say, like, is he getting better? Is he back to old school, 25.6% tackle avoided rate back in 2021 pre-injury? I would say he is not. I don't think he looks bad. I don't think he looks great. But he is getting what the offensive line opens up for him. Now, this last week, they opened up quite a bit, and he had a great game. He had 17 opportunities, 14 for 88, and the 2 touchdowns. I don't see him doing a lot on his own, as in, like, an opportunity to one-on-one beat a guy. Sometimes he does. Oftentimes he doesn't. It used to be most often he would. And so the way that I look at this is an offense that's getting better. It's a super young offense. It's Bo Nix and Vele and Estime and Troy Franklin and, just a bunch of youth infusion. They're gonna have some learning curves and some bumps in the road, but also, and I think maybe most importantly for the whole Javonte narrative, is Mike McGlinchey, their right tackle, who's a really solid veteran right tackle. He missed about the last month. And what I noticed in watching the line was that they were significantly better on the right side with McGlinchey in there. And not just him, but the right guard seemed to play so much better with McGlinchey on the field, which makes sense. Like, you're not worried about, the protections. You know that the guy to the right of you can hold up, so you can cheat over a little bit. The whole offensive line seemed to play better last week. Is that because the Saints' defensive line is not very good anymore, or is that McGlinchey coming back? Here's my overarching takeaway. I think Javonte Williams has good games ahead. He is not going to be a superstar. He's not going to get back to when he was like a top 5 dynasty running back prospect. He's not that dude anymore. I don't see that on film. But I think the offense is going to get better. I think the offensive line is already better. This week they get to play the Carolina Panthers, so heck yeah, man, fire up your Javonte. So I basically have gone from someone that, you thought you really don't know if he has any future to I think he is a solid piece for the rest of the year. Not a superstar, but a solid. I think he'll continue to get the work, and if the offensive line and the offense improves, he'll be like the running back 16 rest of the way.
Jason, I love your hand in the dirt takes here. I mean, we're talking about right guards, right tackles.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when we're talking about Javonte, those matter. You know what I mean? If
they do.
If we're talking about some running backs, whatever, just plow through. But really, that was the takeaway, and that's why I started shifting to purely watching the offensive line, because what I noticed is Javonte did fine when they opened a hole. If they don't, he didn't do anything on his own. So he's going to get what the offense gives him. So, therefore, what's the offense? And the offense I do project getting better as the season goes on.
Yeah, he's so interesting, too, from like not just this year but beyond. Is like, a couple years ago before the injury, you would have asked yourself, does he get a second deal, and is it a huge deal? Almost certainly, right? Now it's like he gets a second deal, but where is he playing is the uncertain situation. He's in a contract year this year. So
right now he is borderline bell cow. I mean, he's not. They're rotating guys in. McLaughlin gets in there. Estime gets in there. But the total amount of volume that he can receive in a game is close to those guys that get the majority of work.
For sure.
there's no chance that that's what happens next year. I mean, the only team in the entire league that would make that investment would be the Denver Broncos. I'm not sure. I mean, are they finally out of the Russell contract next year? I don't know. I remember it was like a death knell for a decade. If they're out of that, then maybe. If they still got that on the books, they can't afford to invest at the running back position.
And just to back up what you're saying, they run to the right side, Jason, 56% of the time. Second highest rate in the NFL. So your film is backed up with what the stats are saying. So,
sweet.
I love when it lines up like that. All right, let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back. We are going to turn the page and focus on wide receivers for the rest of this episode. And it's something we do in the offseason where we check in, we talk about different thresholds for players to hit, like in their first year, their second year, your third year. So let's get into it.
Wide receivers.
All right, so routes.
Speaking of quarterback Russell Wilson, I just wanted to look this up based on our previous conversation. 2025 dead money cap, $32 million going to Russell Wilson. So that's just, to me, that says that that says to me that they are not going to be able to sign Javonte to any kind of considerable money. If I was Javonte, I would go get the biggest bag of money I can get, but that bag is not going to come with the role that's going to be valuable for fantasy. So if Javonte's doing great this year, I'd try to move him.
Russ is making so much money that he has basically resolved and signed over his entire consciousness to basically just a computer program. When he's talking, there's not a human being there anymore. There's nobody. The interviews could not be less interesting, and yet he was the quarterback. He was the quarterback one for a second, and then I think he's quarterback 3 now.
A vanilla publicist behind the eyeballs. That's all it is.
Just hype man for himself.
It's so hard to watch, man. Like, when did it all go south? I don't know. But hey, credit where credit's due. I mean, you played well on Sunday night.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking about wide receivers, talking about per route metrics. And when it comes to targets and yards, we care about routes. Snaps are great, but we care about routes because that's how they're earning fantasy points. And so over the years, we've looked at different metrics and said, okay, if they hit this number in terms of targets per route run or this number in yards per route run, that's a good sign. Realize this isn't everything. This isn't the only piece of the puzzle, especially with some of these rookies. We don't have a lot of information. There are certain stats, though, that you can look at within the first half of the season and go, this is kind of how they're used. Like ADOT is one of those stats we talk about, average depth of target, where you look at this player and go, this is where they're getting targeted on the field. So it makes sense that they're getting these, I don't know, Elijah Moore-esque routes, which at one point in his career, Elijah Moore was not that player getting little 1-yard dinky screens. Instead, he was a second-round wide receiver that we said, hey, he put together some good numbers, and he was intriguing. So we're going to look at some of the classes of wide receivers, start with the first years, and then move forward. And I want to kind of get y'all's thoughts on some of them. Some of them stand out to me so far and how they're used, and really just see, like, do you see things improving? Is this encouraging so far? So the class that we talked about last week, remember we did our rookie draft redo? We spent a lot of time just kind of dissecting them. Who would you rather have? I wanted to bring up Marvin Harrison Jr. first. He played on Monday night, and by playing, what I really mean is I don't know if him and Kyler are on the same page, and I don't know if they're giving Marvin the routes that we want. He is being targeted on 24% of his routes. And for a first-round wide receiver in their first year, we want to see that above 20%. So he's getting targeted. He's not getting hyper-targeted the way that I think we want. So, Jason, you can give your perspective as like Cardinal-centric person, but Betz, first for you, do you feel like we're getting so far the volume that we want from Marvin as the 4th overall player drafted in the NFL draft?
I mean, it's all relative because your numbers here that we're talking about are on a per route basis. But I mean, the Cardinals' identity right now is James Conner, right? It's not really to open it up and be a pass happy offense. So it's not really a ton of volume that we want necessarily. Now, on a per route basis, he's still earning enough volume that you're like, okay, he's commanding targets when he's out there. It's just that they're not easy targets. Like when you watch Neighbors and the Giants, like they're manufacturing him stuff. It's quick hitters and deep targets. It's a full route tree. It's just like with Marv, everything just seems difficult. Like nothing's easy. And it's hard to put up numbers that way. Now he obviously had an incredible game against the Rams. That's the Rams partially. But yeah, I think if you have him, you're probably a little disappointed based off what you've seen so far from the offense and his play as well. So it's a combination of a couple things, but obviously we're very early in his career. Nobody's panicking yet, but I think largely you're probably a little disappointed based off what you expected.
Yeah, I'm looking at some stats and some numbers from Seth Walder of ESPN. His most frequent routes so far relative to other wide receivers are deep crossers, corners, deep outs, and comebacks. So it's kind of these long developing plays. And that's kind of what I've noticed when I'm watching the games. And Jason, you can back me up. It's like, it's just like, it feels so hard just to get a completion. And maybe that's a Kyler thing. I don't know. What are you seeing, Jason, with Marv?
Yeah, something is completely out of sync. We watch the film, we watch it back, we watch, closely when it's live. They're completely out of sync. I mean, you're talking about a 47% catch percentage. Marvin Harrison on the season. He's had 43 targets, only caught 20 of them. However, we've seen big plays. We've seen big games. We've seen the skills that he showed in college. This is a rookie. This is a rookie drafted in the top 5. I think it's going to take time, and we wish it didn't. But I still don't see Marvin Harrison being someone that busts. People are starting to ask, like, is he just going to be a bust of a career? Now, if he ends up becoming Amari Cooper, I don't know if that's a bust from the draft pick that you were hoping for that you got, because Amari Cooper was another one of those, like, I think he was a top 5 draft pick, maybe a top 10.
4th overall.
Oh, okay, so samesies. And Amari Cooper you hoped was, a Justin Jefferson, and that's what you hope you're getting in Marvin Harrison. It's unlikely that he develops into that, but I don't think he's going to fall much below an Amari Cooper style of a career. It's just a shame that it's not happening quickly. And I don't know how much of this is Petzing. I mean, I will say, starting right off in week 1 when there were some concerns with the Bills game and Marvin Harrison's usage, the whole deep patterns, deep crosses, I don't understand why they are not giving him easy stuff, why they aren't just having him, line up in the slot on this play and slant across the field. Like, just get him involved and mix him up. But he is a rookie. So it's like, I don't know what, the ins and outs of the play design and all that are going to be. I think he's fine long-term dynasty. Redraft-wise, you almost have to wait until it's proven that there's a connection before you get him back on the field.
Yeah, and Jason, you kind of pointed that out. Like, begrudgingly, you said in redraft this year, it's like, I think he might be a bust for where you're taking him. But in terms of long view, I just comparing to other first-round wide receivers, the average since 2014 is 20% targets per outrun and 1.70 yards per outrun. He's above both of those already. So there should be no bust conversation. And it's interesting you bring up Cooper, because he is one of those players that has felt mostly boom bust throughout his career. And there's a quote that came out this past week from Nick Saban, his coach from Alabama, who said, the entire time I was there, I don't think Amari Cooper said one word to me. I don't know if we had one conversation. He's just a quiet dude who is going to, do what he does. And you see Amari Cooper, he's been on his 4th team now. He just earns targets and he has these monster games. If that's what Marvin is, that's a good NFL wide receiver. That's a really good NFL wide receiver who can be a one for a franchise. We just want easier opportunities for him in fantasy. And I don't know, hopefully we get that. But yeah, I agree. Like, Petzing, is there talk of Petzing like not well liked?
It's gone back and forth. Arizona's a fickle state, so it's one of those things where it's like, how did we do last week? He's the greatest, or he's the worst. When I look at the offense, I don't like it. I certainly don't love it. We've seen better when Cliff Kingsbury was here with Kyler's utilization. And that's saying something, because we didn't like Cliff. So
that's right.
I will say I believe Kyler is playing some bad football, and some of this is not on Marvin Harrison. Some of this is on Kyler Murray. When I watched the game yesterday, he was great for fantasy. Ended up multiple touchdowns, tons of rushing yards, had, if you're in any kind of bonus league, had another 44-yard touchdown run. But his seeing of the field, his accuracy, which has always been a hallmark, like he gets the ball where he wants it to be. I just feel like it hasn't been there right now. So Petzing won't be around long term. We're not going to win a ton of games this year, and we'll have to see what the future coordinator is for Marvin Kyler.
All right, I wanted to throw out just a couple more rookie wide receivers. We're not going to talk about neighbors. Brian Thomas Jr. is actually ahead of him in yards per out run, he's just been awesome this year, 2.73, so he's blowing the doors off. I wanted to bring up Xavier Worthy because quietly his targets per out run is just at 18%, so that's below what we'd want for a first-round wide receiver on a team that has basically lost every wide receiver, and his yards per out run is much lower than we'd want, 1.29. It's 64th among 82 wide receivers this year, according to Jared Smola. Betz, what are the vibes on Worthy right now, how he's being utilized in the offense? Because it's like you're not abandoning ship, but there is kind of a red flag right now of a player that we know is explosive, and yet we, other than like week 1, which was like the game that we all remember, him having 2 touchdowns, I don't really have very many memories of him. I guess last week they missed a deep bomb, but that's like literally it in terms of my Worthy memories so far.
Yeah, week 1, 2 touchdowns on like 5 touches. And of course, everybody reacted rationally, as we always do. Yeah, the thing with the Chiefs is it's so interesting, right? Because you have to remember, this is not what they envision their offense being, right? Like Rashee Rice out for the year, Hollywood Brown didn't take a single snap. We all thought the Chiefs would be this downfield, more explosive offense, and just with the injuries they've had, it hasn't happened. And, I don't think when they took him that they were saying, okay, Worthy is going to be our go-to guy. We're going to get him on the field right away. He's going to run all the routes. That certainly was not the plan when you have Rashee Rice, when you have Kelsey still there, when you have all these other weapons, that now he's just thrusting the opportunity, and I don't know that he's ready for it. So that combined with the way they're playing, with how good their defense still is, it's very tough to have high-end outcomes for fantasy. There still will be, I think, a couple big plays and big games just because of his ability to be so explosive. But yeah, I think with all the context around this, if you would have told anybody that drafted Worthy, hey, Rashee Rice is going to be out for the year, no Hollywood Brown, Kelsey might be declining a little bit, you'd be like, okay, sign me up for week 6, week 7, Xavier Worthy as wide receiver 1 for Pat Mahomes. And obviously you've been disappointed. So yeah, I'm hoping to see over the second half of the year, like more expanded route tree and route share for him, and the ability to earn real targets, not just these kind of screens and jet sweeps and stuff like that, because it definitely is a concern after the first, several weeks. Though, on the other side, we've seen rookies with Pat Mahomes struggle a lot over the course of their career. Like, it kind of takes a special player to understand how Mahomes operates, and Rashee Rice was a perfect fit for that. So yeah, I'm not panicking yet, but I'm definitely a little concerned based off what we've seen.
Yeah, so just what we're doing is going through these wide receivers, and at this point, we're only 7 games in. You don't need to abandon ship, like Betz said, but there are some little red flags. Like, I have a spreadsheet that kind of goes through and tracks all this stuff, and I kind of have little marks that I check a couple times during the off season, but also like during the season, just kind of put a little note like, okay, well, why is the deep stuff not working? That's what I had with Worthy, because with the speed, we kind of connect the dots and make sure it should. But so I don't have like a full like red flag in my little spreadsheet. If you have 3, it's like you're toast. You're Jonathan Mingo level of like toast. There is one that's growing for him though. That's it. That's just where I'm at, where it's like, okay, what's his usage going to be like? Is he ever going to be a guy? I'll put it this way. Is Xavier Worthy ever going to be a guy that commands more than 5 targets a game?
I don't think
is
we know
that
the answer
rhetorical?
Yet. I'm asking. I don't know the answer. In my head, I would bet against it.
Yeah, there were some
slow.
really, really great things from college that made me made me like his prospect profile coming out. There were also some things from college that were yellow flags that have unfortunately translated. The nice thing about this last week is that, at post the Rashee Rice injury, we saw a change in his utilization. Now, it didn't result in the counting stats. He didn't get a bunch of targets, yards, receptions, touchdowns, all that stuff we're looking for. But prior to last week, he was almost exclusively, like the vast, vast majority of his work was near the line of scrimmage or go routes. That's it. It was just like here or way down there. We're only using you as kind of a gadget. Like we're designing plays that are either for you in the screen game to try to use your speed, get some blockers out in front of you, or we're using your speed deep down the field. This last game, they did change it, and his intermediate routes existed on a much larger chunk than on the previous season. So I'm not out on Xavier Worthy being a 5-catch-a-guy player yet. If I have him, I'm certainly holding him. I don't have the confidence to go out and trade for him. You know, you would hope that while they changed that utilization this last week, maybe he would have gotten open and demanded some of them targets. However, it was also a really good defense against San Francisco 49ers on the road. So one game does not a career make. I would certainly hold on to him now. I would trade for him if a manager is just out already, but I don't think I think most people who drafted him are holding him. If I had to put money on whether he's going to be a future usable, like weekly, most weeks started fantasy asset, I would still bet the dollar that he will develop into that.
All right, quickly, I just want to mention a couple other rookies before we turn to the next class, but Keon Coleman has been good on a yards per out run basis. You've kind of seen the explosive plays. He's 2.17. It's going to be tough for him to earn targets. He didn't really earn targets in college the way Lou wanted to. Lad McConkey is somebody who earns targets. You're just not getting this crazy down the field game, and it's still crazy to me they threw for 350 yards because you look at the game log and you look at who caught the ball for the Chargers this past week on Monday night.
Will Disley,
it was Will Disley and the boys. I mean, it was just like the most random cast of characters. But Lad's been good. He's been getting open. The last two names I want to bring up: Jalen Polk, who his yards per out run is in the death zone so far. 0.48, and we know that the vibes are really bad. And then Adonai Mitchell, who is not a full-time player, and yet I don't know if you guys saw his targets per out run so far. When he's on the field, he's being targeted 34% of the time, which is pretty crazy. It's only 27 targets so far, but like he has a bit part in the offense, and yet they target him when he's on the field. So that's kind of interesting to note so far. But any thoughts on Polk so far? Because it's like he's had the opportunity, so we want to jump at that, and it's been doo-doo the last 2 weeks.
I mean, when you're losing playing time to Kayshon Boutte, that's not good. No, it's early in his career, all those caveats, but yeah, you're disappointed. The thing that's kind of been tough for me to see is like, it seems like his hands he just has so many drops, and drops can be fluky year to year and week to week, so you don't want to overreact. But like in college, when I think back to his tape at Washington, the dude's ability to catch the ball in contested situations, tight windows, like that kind of stuff was awesome. So he just looks kind of lost out there. So yeah, obviously it's been tough. I don't think you're getting much for him via trade, or there's no reason to go aggressively get him. But like right now, you just kind of hold and wait and see where you're at with him. I will say if the trend continues for weeks and weeks and weeks, I probably will try to recoup, I don't know, wherever you took him, a late second, and just reset for next year. Because usually these rookies that do this kind of stuff for the entire year, not just the first 6 weeks or 7 weeks, but for the entire year, that's when you want to be actionable with this type of stuff. So I have a yellow flag up of monitor Jalen Polk. It does not look good right now.
Yeah, if you can get a second for Polk, I would do that. Because there's a chance that next year's second, you could usually just do that with wide receivers over and over, rinse, recycle, repeat until all of a sudden you get one that's like, hey, that's a guy I got to hit. Before Drake Mays last week, before this week, there was a bunch of tweets going around about the behind-the-scenes metrics being really, really terrible, yards after catch being terrible, how bad Polk is. Mike and I went and we watched every Polk target on the season. And he was absolutely fine the first 5 weeks. Nothing was his fault. He wasn't great in the statting, the stat sheets. His yards after the catch was nothing. None of it was his fault. in the sense that, like, he's designed on a screen where there's three guys on defense there. He's coming over a crosser and he's drilled a ball in and he grabs it. That's fine. The first week that I watched it was bad was the first week with Drake May. I was like, ooh, okay, woof. Yeah, drop city. And so the fact that the second week comes out and it's like, wait a minute, why are you doing, why aren't you catching the ball? To Betz' credit, I thought he had great hands. Like, my scouting in college, I'm sure if I go back and look at my notebook, I've got great hands on there. Because I felt like he had very strong hands. He was just a solid player. Just beautiful. It could be a hand model. Like, just look how beautiful those hands are. Cuticles, incredible. That being said, you don't get forever in today's NFL. And the Patriots will have strong draft picks, and their wide receiver room is clearly missing an alpha. I mean, it is so beyond clearly missing an alpha while you've got a rookie quarterback that will be the Patriots' focus next year. There's no chance that the Patriots don't go out and sign or draft a wide receiver 1 for this team. And the problem there is when they do that, okay, now Demario Douglas is the 2. And now Kayshon Boutte and Jalen Polk are fighting for the 3 for a team that you're not sure is going to develop into a good offense. So, yeah, if you can recoup a 2, the trajectory and the path does not appear – there's a lot to overcome. I'm not giving him the death knell sentence. Like I said, the first 5 weeks I thought he looked fine. It was more an offensive system problem. But I would move out if I could and just kick the can down the road. It's not like you're going to win a championship with Jalen Polk this year.
For sure. It's a good point, too, on the wide receiver 1. Like, they need the alpha, and they know it, right? They tried to get Brandon Ayuk when the rumors were going on this summer about the trade and all that sort of stuff. So, they know it. Everybody knows it. They need a 1 for Drake May to support him to be their starter long term.
So, just to final point on Polk. So, has this turned from, and this is kind of the process that I don't know from, I'm trying to figure it out. When does a yellow flag move to, like, this is a red flag? And to me, once a player has 3 of those, it's like, okay, this is gone. Like, if I look at it in your behind the scenes stuff, if I look at it and I just look at this team makeup and I didn't like your prospect profile, it's like, Jonathan Mingo, you're out. There was no chance for me to say I want Jonathan Mingo at all after his rookie year because he had 3 red flags to me. So with Polk, has this like added 1 already to his profile to you?
We're looking at the 3 strike system, Kyle.
That's how I'm doing it.
I think he's got a strike.
Really cool spreadsheet.
Yeah, I think he's got a strike. And we'll wait and see what happens over the next 3-4 weeks.
Yeah,
does he have a strike? Okay.
Yeah, he's got a strike.
All right. It's tough,
and baseball says 3 strikes are out. I'm a huge baseball guy. Go baseball.
I love that about you, Jason. Well,
Jason,
let's take a quick break.
Who's in the World Series?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I think I know this. Oh, no, I don't. It's the Dodgers for sure because they beat the Mets, which is incredible that I know that.
Okay,
Incredible.
let me. I'm going to tell you this part. It's whoever Cowboys fans like is the other team in there.
So that means it's from somewhere in Texas.
No.
Oh, okay. It's the Yankees. Yeah, it's the Yankees Dodgers.
Baseball guy.
Yeah.
Okay. What's funny is I was like, oh no, I got to think of Texas baseball teams. I was like, oh goodness gracious, I don't want to do that. Does Dallas have a baseball team? I don't ask. Baseball's stupid. It's boring. It's your great-grandfather's game. Move on.
Oh, man. Texas Rangers, they just happened to win the World Series the year before. But let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back. All right, we're going to move on to some second-year wide receivers, so the class of 2023. The first-round wide receivers were all picked back-to-back that year. JSN, Quentin Johnston, which is still hilarious, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison were the first-round picks, and then the fifth wide receiver taken was the aforementioned Jonathan Mingo. I don't really want to talk about him. I did want to bring up Zay Flowers first among that group because I've had to change my outlook on him, I think, 2 or 3 times so far. I wasn't a big Zay guy coming out of college, an older prospect who I thought would be mostly gadgety. And I think for a while we did see those plays, especially at the beginning of this year. I feel like week 1, that game against the Chiefs was all little dinky short plays. And since then, the last couple of weeks, they have used him down the field. He's earning targets, 26% of his routes. Zay Flowers is a player that I've had to pay attention to. Is is he morphing into a top 15 dynasty wide receiver? Because I don't ever want to put him there. He's not a player that I usually like unless you're in full PPR, but he's the clear one on the team. It's no longer Mark Andrews. He's clearly there. So Betz, I'll let you go first. Like, how do you categorize Zay Flowers?
Yeah, I mean, just at the team level perspective, like right now, it's going to be one of those situations where he probably has a lot of fine to down games if it's a Derrick Henry game. That's just kind of the way it goes. But he still has a massive ceiling on a week-to-week basis. Lamar is playing some of the best football of his career as a passer. He's on pace for a career high in basically every important category as a thrower. So that part is clicking, and he's the dude. So I think I'm more in than out on Zay Flowers being able to continue to take that step forward. We love betting on year 2 wide receivers, and when you see them take a step forward, you should believe it, especially for a guy that had draft capital in his profile. So yeah, I think Zay Flowers is rock solid, top 15. I don't know, top 20. Certainly, I think that's the case. But yeah, and his ADOT is improved. So like his big boy routes that he's running down the field are much improved. So yeah, I'm in on Zay Flowers. He's looked great so far this year.
Yeah, somebody in my league has been calling him Baby Zay for a long time because all it is these little dinky routes that you're like, is this really going to matter? And yeah, he's kind of grown up. So last year, over 2 yards per out run. I mean, he was really, really good against zone. And this year, I think you've kind of seen him grow overall. So let me put that to the test. 15 to 20, he's somewhere in there. Would you rather have Zay Flowers or DJ Moore in Dynasty?
Oh, that is super funny, Kyle. I'm laughing because while you two gentlemen are talking, I don't know about what, I'm trading over here.
Nice.
And specifically, we just got a trade to go down in Dino Jr., of which you're both a part of now. Yep. And we just acquired DJ Moore, and we were in that deal. They wanted us to give up Zay Flowers.
It's a big boy trade.
It was a big boy trade, but we decided, I'm not sure rest of season, that DJ Moore's better than Zay Flowers, so we couldn't do that. We swapped Zay Flowers to Ladd McConkey. The whole deal, I don't know if you've seen it yet, but for the listeners as well, we are trading Isaiah Pacheco, injured, doesn't help us. Ladd McConkey, love him, but he's not going to help us this year. And 2 firsts.
Wow.
For Devon Achane and DJ Moore and Vidal Sassoon as a insurance.
Most important part of the trade.
Yeah, I mean, your hair's got to look nice. Vidal Sassoon. So we did that. If you break it into pieces, because we were fine. We were looking at Achane on their team. We're the champ team. We're not the current champion, but the previous 3. And we lost Pacheco. I'm not sure we're getting him back this year. I love Achane. That's no secret. And so we were thinking about offering we basically had a deal done of Pacheco and a 1 for Achane, because the team that is trading Achane, they're looking for the number 1 pick. They've got 3 players that are even decent on their team. It was Puka, Achane, and DJ Moore. We were trying to get Puka, couldn't get that done. And so if we would do that, I would also certainly trade Ladd and a 1 for DJ Moore dynasty-wise, because dynasty-wise, if Caleb is legit, Keenan Allen's going to disappear, and I think DJ Moore can be, a next 3 or 4 year star in this league if Caleb Williams is legit. What we've seen over the last 2 games is that he does not look like he's not playing how a bust plays. I never once saw Josh Rosen have a single game that either one of what Caleb Williams just put together. We never had Bryce Young, have a game of the last 2 games that Caleb Williams has done. So maybe it's going to be a bumpy ride on the Shane Waldron Express, but I do think future-wise, dynasty-wise, he looks great. So DJ Moore is probably a little undervalued right now. So anyways, to answer your question, Zay Flowers or DJ Moore, in a dynasty, I would rather have DJ Moore, but it's very close.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm looking at this trade, and it's like you can kind of weigh things out. You can use a trade calculator, whatever. I just look at it in terms of your team context and go, they're going for the win. Like that's
darn right. We are champ.
And so it's kind of like the value might swing a little bit on the other side, or the dynasty bros are going to say like, oh, look at all this young players you're going to get. Like, who knows what Pacheco is in 2 years, by the way. Just sadly.
Honestly, I worry. The reason Pacheco's a my guy for me this year on the main show. I mean, I obviously love Isaiah Pacheco. I drafted him in our league of record. Was super happy about it. Super happy about my guy pick until obviously he broke his leg. But dynasty-wise, it's concerning. The reason that Pacheco was my guy for me was because this offseason, there was a lot of rumors about them going after one of the big running backs in the draft. It didn't happen. The draft didn't fall that way for them, or they chose not to do it. Jerick McKinnon had been a part of this team. They chose not to sign him. They rolled with Isaiah Pacheco. They said, okay, he's going to be our guy. But I don't think that is a guarantee that next year they say, well, now that he's back from injury, he's our guy. We've established this. He's never really been full season established as a bell cow guy. There was a small sample, and they could do it. They could absolutely go into next season as Isaiah Pacheco the guy, and then I'll be 100% in just like I was this year. But what if they draft someone good? What if they go out and make a splash of free agency? That's just – I mean, they don't have a lot of cap space, but there's no guarantee he is that guy next year.
They have their guy right now. I mean, it's just you ride that guy in Kansas City. You take Kareem Hunt.
I just
what a dynasty asset.
Spoiler, this morning's show, I'm talking about Kareem Hunt as my hungry for more player.
Ooh.
Nice. Well, check that out.
That's a great trade. Real quick on the Flowers more discussion. I lean Flowers, but totally think it's a fair conversation.
Yeah, just the age difference there. Zay Flowers is 24. DJ Moore somehow still 27 and a half years old. His age doesn't apparently change anytime in our metrics at all.
It's unbelievable.
All right, so a couple more second-year wide receivers. Jayden Reed is one of the weirder players to look at if you're looking at metrics, because you look at what he did last year, and he was awesome. 24% targets per out run, over 2 yards per out run. You saw the explosive plays. You also were a little worried going into the season of can he keep up this insane efficiency where he just touches the ball, it turns into a touchdown. For most of this year, it feels like, well, that's just kind of how it's been, right? He's been their explosive playmaker. He's been getting a lot of touchdowns. It's weird when you look at his yards per out run, it's awesome, 2.63. And yet, when I look at the Packers wide receivers, every single week, I have no idea who's going to lead the team in targets. It was Dobbs this past week. Wicks earns a lot of targets. He doesn't catch all of them, but he earns a lot of targets. Kraft's a part of the offense. It's just a weird bet to make for a player that I don't know if he's ever going to be the alpha in terms of earning targets. In terms of efficiency, yes, he's the best player on the team. But in earning targets, it's not always him. And so it doesn't match a lot of other wide receivers that I look at. I look at, Brian Thomas Jr., and you look at his efficiency and his yards per out run, you go, that dude looks like an alpha. He will be the alpha this year and next year, no questions asked. But Jayden Reed has moments where he just disappears from the game plan. So I wanted to get y'all's thoughts on him because I think people view him as, I think people want him more than Zay. I think they view him in the top 15.
Yeah, they do, and I don't necessarily blame them for that. You have a very good offense here. You have an incredible offense. Last night on the broadcast, they were talking about how Baker Mayfield leads the NFL in passing touchdowns, and right behind him is Jordan Love. And I was like, Jordan Love missed 2 games. Jordan Love was gone for 2 weeks, and he's second in the league in passing touchdowns. I don't know if Lamar hopped him, but the point is, this is a great offense, and he's the best wide receiver of it. But he's never going to be one of those 178 target guys because he's a 178-pound guy. So the comp that I think I've heard Andy say before, I know it's not of my own creation, but I completely agree with it. If it wasn't Andy, I don't remember who it was, is kind of a Percy Harvin type, a really explosive guy that can win you weeks all over the place, can house touchdowns from anywhere, who's going to get the ball in the running game. There's not a single game this season where he hasn't had a carry. They're designing touches for him, and whenever you get the ball in his hands, he could do something special. So I'm fine being in on him, but it is very difficult to look back. Like, Kyle, you've got a much both of you better than me, but Kyle, I know you're a history buff. Can you think of situations where the best fantasy wide receiver was not a huge target earner, but also not the super downfield touchdown machine like, those like how Mike Evans or who's the old Tampa Bay Buccaneer I'm thinking of?
Vincent Jackson.
Yeah, Vincent Jackson. Like not that type, it's a totally different type. Just a hyper efficient number one fantasy option for their team that holds up long term for value. Because even Percy Harvin didn't.
Yeah, it's like holding up long term is another question because you can have the big play, touchdowns, but it's like, the dudes that have been wide receiver ones that have had his style of just like they just had a ton of touchdowns, like the Randall Cobb types. I'll look through the history and just find dudes like that. But Betz, what's your take on Reed?
Yeah, I don't know how much there is to add on just the situation of kind of what it is. Like, it's a wide receiver rotation. There's 5+ guys that could see targets. Like Bo Melton's even getting a couple targets every week, right? That's just what this team does. The Butter Man. But as time goes by in a player's career, when they are this good, coaches figure out how to get that guy the ball more and more and more. And I know people made the comp last year, and we kind of always do this with this player. And eventually we're like, guys, this doesn't exist. But like, he could be the next Debo. I know that's kind of wild to say because Debo's just been insane, but like the comp of like how he plays, his play style, the efficiency doesn't make sense, but he's just so good at football. And eventually the coach will get in the ball more. So I'm more in than out on Jayden Reed. Just bet on talent and bet on the fact that you're tied to Jordan Love and a great head coach and play caller. That, the Christian Watson stuff probably phases out over time. Romeo Doubs is fine, but never really going to dominate the ball. So I'm in on Jayden Reed. I think he's a very, very good player who's going to have a role for years to come.
Man, if Jayden Reed were 215 pounds like Debo, I'd be like, oh, yeah, but everyone would be. The scary thing is, it's tough to bet on tiny wide receivers. I took the bet on Tank Dell so far this year, taking the L. Those small guys, it's hard for them to have the ball enough. And stay healthy at the same time. I mean, Debo can't even usually stay healthy, and he's 215 pounds.
Yeah, the names that come to mind is Debo. Robert Woods has been used in a lot of different ways over the years. He wasn't always the number one read in his offense or number one target earner. Thinking of players that just had some crazy touchdown seasons like Doug Baldwin, where you look back and you go, oh, he had 110 targets. That's not like insane, and yet he'd have seasons with like 10 plus.
Doug Baldwin is a super duper like that. I think that's the name I was looking for. Doug Baldwin is a perfect comp for him.
There you go. I did want to mention Tank Dell. That's the last little name I wanted to bring up, Jason, because
we have to.
Yeah, because I've been in too. I think we all were, and we had conversations in the offseason about him versus JSN and even Zay Flowers. We kind of compared them all. I was looking at what he's done this year because the yards per out run has clearly just plummeted. Last year, he killed it against zone. His yards per out run overall was 2.22. This year, I'm sorry, it's 1.06. So he's above the line that you need. Remember, one is like the death sentence where it's only Devontae Adams' return from the grave. But here's the thing that I've noticed is he has no receptions of 20-plus air yards. And some of those might be his own fault of dropping them. But he has 6 receptions behind the line of scrimmage. He had 1 all of last year. And the last 2 weeks with Nico out of the picture, this offense looks like it's just short. I mean, how many yards did CJ Stroud throw for this past week? It felt like it was like 90.
I have to imagine it was almost nothing. He had
sure
5 fantasy points. Yeah. I got it for you here. He threw for 86 total yards.
Good.
To that point, what I was going to bring up is CJ Stroud so far has not been getting, Tank Dell has been getting lit on fire for the disappointment. But where are we with CJ Stroud and lighting him on fire for the disappointment? You've got, we're going into 7 weeks. There's 2 usable games for CJ Stroud. Last year, he was on pace for 4,600 yards as a rookie first year. And right now, he's on pace for 4,000 yards over a full game season. So the matchups, we talked about it last year, they were a big deal for him. Those splits were heavy. And if you look at his matchups so far this year, Green Bay, he's played, that was a tough matchup. Chicago, he's played, that was a tough matchup. Minnesota, he's played, that was a tough matchup. Buffalo and New England, kind of neutral. So 3 tough matchups. He sucked in all 3 for fantasy. 2 really good matchups, Jacksonville and Indianapolis.
He
was
took advantage
awesome
of good
in both of those. So I think this is really like, I don't know if we need to extrapolate Tank a little bit more over to CJ Stroud on the, like, when they're going to have a big passing game, a successful high flying, he's going to throw for 404, which Stroud's going to do a couple times this year. That's against Indianapolis this week, or against Dallas if they're still banged up in week 11, Jacksonville in week 13. But he's got a pretty hard schedule. I mean, I'm skipping around a lot of weeks. You got the Jets, you got Detroit, which looks better. Tennessee Titans are great in the secondary. Kansas City and Baltimore for the championship week and the week before championship week. So I don't know. That all applies to Tank. Everything that applies to Stroud applies to Tank.
Yeah, I think that it's multifaceted. And just in general, like Stroud splits last year, bad defenses he crushed. I will say his efficiency has regressed to some degree. Last year, 8.2 YPA. This year, 7.3. Still a very, very good mark, but last year was just unsustainable. So you're seeing some natural regression. You're also seeing Joe Mixon just be unreal. And if you're the Texans and you're 5-2 and this formula is working, why would you change it? So you have a pass volume issue most weeks as well, plus target competition. Generally, it's just a bad recipe for fantasy points. So yeah, it's been very disappointing. Did we jump the ship, so to speak? Is that the phrase?
Jump the shark.
Jump the shark.
Jump the gun.
Don't jump off the ship. Maybe we were just ahead of ourselves on Tank, but the peripheral numbers were great. All those sort of things that I'm still more in than out, but I think just the team level situation context is important for this year. I don't think you're getting what we thought we were going to get as far as a year 2 breakout.
Yeah, and I think adding in the equation that Diggs has just earned more targets. He's been set up in the slot. He's been dependable. I won't say great, but he's been dependable for this team. You mentioned it. They're 5-2. And the biggest thing for me for Stroud this year is just this, he's just been taking way more sacks. So a lot of drives are just killed, where last year that was like his, one of his main trump cards was throwing the ball down the field and avoiding sacks. And when you do that, you don't have some great outputs. All right, so I'm going to send out some of these other, I know a lot of people want to hear about metrics. In our Discord channels, for Ballers Discord, we're also going to have a discussion here. I wanted to make sure that we get to talk about all the different wide receivers. So this week, if you are a member of Join the Foot, you can be a part of our Discord channels or Dynasty Superflex or Dynasty Trade Advice channels. You can talk about some of these players. With Tank Dell, my last thought is I'm just going to hold. I can't imagine getting the value that I want. Like, nobody will give me a first, sadly, right now. And I think that's what he's at least worth.
I think he's
man, that is tough. Thinking about trading for Tank Dell for a first.
If I have him, I'm holding. I'm just
but I mean, right. I'm just saying what I thought of Tank Dell coming into this season. The idea of getting Tank Dell for a first rounder would have been a no-brainer. I mean, it would have been like, you're telling me I can get Tank Dell just for my first? I'll just have a great player? I would have done it in a heartbeat. And now, if you say, would you trade a Dynasty rookie first-round pick for Tank Dell, I have to hold my breath and think about it and probably pray about it for a little while before I could decide which direction to go there. And that makes me very sad as a staunch believer of what I saw last year, going through the film of his entire rookie season. And what's really funny and sad, but eventually you got to stop making excuses for players, is there are like 3 plays or 4 or 5, like just huge, humongous plays that were drops where it's like, if he just catches 3/5 of them, we're all in on Tank Dell. So it's really tough. I think I'm too close to it. I'm like a judge. I need to be recused since he's my guy. Like I don't have a level head on Tank.
What if I told you that this team that I'm wearing this stupid necklace and everything else for has Tank Dell on it?
Oh, no. You had a goose and you lost by 3?
I had a goose, I had Devonta Smith, and I had Jaden Daniels. Whew. It was a rough week, people. Make sure you go to thefantasyfootballers.com to check out everything there, and we will talk to you again next week. Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast. If you want to take your Dynasty skills to the next level, check out thefantasyfootballers.com.